Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Spurs Up. I'm Nick Klos, and with me is Tom Santaniello making his on-camera debut for Spurs Up. Tom, how about you introduce yourself?
Yeah, like Nick said, it's my on-camera debut, but I've actually been with the Spurs Up team for almost 2 years now. I'm usually back in the control room, holding down the fort back there, so it's fun to get out and be with you on the side of the camera, Nick.
Tom, great to have you. So today we have a great guest for you guys. We got the head of the National Championship Gamecock Club Lacrosse team, James Harkey. James, how are you doing today?
Doing well. How are y'all?
We're doing great.
Great,
Thanks for having me, fellas.
So it's awesome to have you here today. Talk about the upcoming season, how you guys have dealt with COVID, how you guys have dealt with getting your season cut short last year. But first, we want to kind of talk about you. So how did you get into lacrosse? How did you start into it? How long have you played?
I'm grateful. You know, lacrosse is a growing sport and continues to be widely regarded as one of the fastest growing sports across the country. I've been playing since I can remember. My dad grew up, kind of bounced around all over the place, but did his high school years in New Jersey at Columbia High School in Maplewood, South Orange, New Jersey. And that's where he picked up lacrosse. And he, you know, multi-sport athlete himself. He ended up playing lacrosse in college and just loved the game and stuck with it. And so he was still playing men's league for a team called Mount Washington Tavern when I was a little guy. And, you know, I don't really remember it so much, but I've been told stories of running around on the sidelines while my dad's playing and, you know, being a menace, trying to run out on the field, and my mom's trying to corral me, that kind of thing. So I've been around it my whole life, and it's a blessing because it is a great sport, and it's to a lot of the people that have got involved in it, they come to find that it's more than just a sport. You know, the Native Americans that gave us this sport called it the medicine game, still call it the medicine game, and it's a great cultural event, you know, to be a part of, and I love it, and I'm blessed to continue to remain involved here at South Carolina.
Right, and then obviously you were a player yourself, not just running around on your dad's teams and stuff like that.
Sure.
So kind of walk us through what it was like being a player at UMBC, being a co-captain, stuff like that.
I had an excellent experience at UMBC, played for a Hall of Fame coach in Don Zimmerman. We had great assistants, a lot of great teammates, you know, formative years for me. You know, it's like anything, there are some ups and downs. We had some years that were not as great as we were hopeful for and planning for, and we had a couple of years that I was thankful to be a part of, you know, championship teams, conference championship teams, NCAA tournament teams. It was a great experience. I played 5 years. I tore my ACL midway through my career and got the year back. It was early in the year that the injury happened, and so I was able to get that year back as a medical redshirt. And it was a phenomenal experience. UMBC was a great place, a lot of great guys, a diverse community overall, the athletic department and the student body, and I enjoyed every bit of it. You know, looking back probably more so than in the moment, certainly there were times where you're running hard and working hard and grinding that don't seem as much fun in the moment as it does when you look back on it. But yeah, great experience.
So after your time at UMBC, you graduated with a history and political science degree. What brought you to South Carolina?
So I applied to go to law school in a couple of different places, and but only a handful, and South Carolina was one that was high on my list for a number of reasons. I've come from a large extended family that's spread out all across the country, but a lot up and down the East Coast. And have some family down around the Charleston area. Have been coming here my whole life, and the weather and pace of life were something I was interested in, and especially growing up in the DC Beltway area. It's a little bit more hectic than life here in Columbia, and that appealed to me, so that's what brought me down here.
Right, and you're obviously a USC law school alum. You have your law degree and all that good stuff. Being a lawyer is no easy task. That's a grind. So why do you make that free time to coach?
Law pays the bills, and it's a job. Coaching is a different kind of job, and I get a lot of passion and reward out of the day-to-day involved in coaching. So it's not so much a sacrifice for me. I'm glad to make time to carve out time to be able to coach and give back and lead young men, not just on the lacrosse field, but figuring out things in their lives, and in this crucial time when you're in college, and figuring out what you want to do with your lives, and what you're interested in studying, in getting into as a career, all those kinds of things. It's a fun time, but it's formative, and I very much enjoy being in the thick of that and helping guys grow and discover themselves, and using sport to establish good habits and tools that they can take with them into the rest of their lives.
That's great. And then, so now let's talk a little bit about last season. Obviously got cut short, came off of a national championship, MCLA national championship, and then were ranked number 1 most of that year. And you guys got that taken away right over spring break. You guys were on a spring break trip. Talk about what was that like for you, and what was that like for your team, and also seniors who didn't get that season back?
Difficult for sure, especially the abrupt nature of how everything got shut down. You do what you have to do. We weren't arguing necessarily. I mean, the fact of the matter is we're still figuring out the best course of action and how to handle this pandemic. And so, certainly don't fault any decision makers for how it all played out. But it's frustrating in the moment. And, we were having a strong year. We were 9-0. And then the last opportunity we had to play, we headed to Atlanta to play Georgia Tech and New Hampshire. And we dropped those 2 games back to back. And that's always tough. But I was excited at the opportunity. I think, and I've discussed this with a number of guys that are coming back and from last year's team, we had become maybe a little bit complacent, a little bit buying into our own BS. And I was excited at the opportunity to kind of get back after it and come back to the basics and figure out, where, not reinvent ourselves, but where do we need to make improvements and tweaks to get back to playing the way we knew we could, and that we doing what we wanted to do. We didn't have that opportunity. That Atlanta weekend was just before spring break, so our guys went off to do their thing for spring break, and then the middle of that week was when the news came down that everything was being shut down. And so certainly, it's difficult. I think for the seniors, to their credit, they handled it about as well as you could. I think, knowing, I've been in those guys' shoes as an athlete, a student athlete myself. If that had been me, I don't know that I would have handled it as well as our guys did overall. They put on a brave face, and they did what they could do and looked forward to the next phase of their lives for most of them. There's a handful of guys that are coming back and we're not planning to graduate, and so they have another opportunity to get back after it one more year. But most guys were graduating and heading on. We actually have one guy that I spoke with not too long ago, Tanner Tweedy, who graduated. And over the summer, I don't know that he had been planning this ahead of time, but over the summer he applied to graduate school at App State, got in, and now he's using his last year from his eligibility from last year to play one more time with that group up there at App State. And I'm excited for him. I think he'll be a great leader with that group. And so, there's a handful of guys that get one more chance, one more shot. Most guys have moved on and are, in jobs now and, excited to start the next phase of their lives.
Right, and you talked about, the guys handled it as best as they could have, but we're back on campus now. We're kind of gearing up for hopefully a full spring season. You have captain's practices now, so you're obviously not involved, but what's been the message to the team throughout all the uncertainty that's coming from COVID?
I don't know that I've said it exactly like this, but if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. We are planning for a spring season as normal. What happens is going to happen. A lot of the big picture things that play into how smoothly it'll go are outside of our control. So for the guys that are looking to be on the team and compete this spring, they have to be self-starters. They have to be disciplined to put in their own work and improve themselves, even a little bit every day, doing something. It doesn't always have to be necessarily lacrosse specific, like hitting the wall or shooting. It could be weight room work or, road work, running. That's been the message generally, is that these guys, you have to use the time now to your advantage and not let it go to waste in the hopes and preparing for a spring season as normal.
Well, these are times of uncertainty, but I know us here at Spurs Up and many Gamecocks fans are really hoping that you guys can have a spring season this year and hopefully bring home another MCLA national championship. Thank you so much, James, for coming on today.
Thank you for having me. Very much appreciate it. And we're hoping for a normal season and hope to have the ability to have a bunch of fans come out and watch our games. If you haven't come out, I'd encourage students to check it out. It's a lot of fun. We have a blast and we get a pretty good turnout, and it's an exciting atmosphere. We play at the old football proving grounds on Bluff Road, catty corner to Willie B, and it's a small setting, so the fans are right there along the sideline, and you're right up in the action, and it's fun.
Well, we're definitely looking forward to that. And thank you all for tuning into this week's episode of Spurs Up. Thank you, JD, again for coming on. And remember, guys, Spurs Up.